Jets head coach Jeff Ulbrich has revealed the truth behind the Mike Williams trade when he was asked about it, and we have to break this down as there's a lot to go over considering trading Mike Williams, looking at where the Jets are now and what they are going to do, how they're going to operate without him, and talking about some other trade news that we've heard about. So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Jets Digest. It's Chris and Matt here, and we're going to jump right into the video. As always, guys, Jeff Ulbrich responded to the Mike Williams trade when he was asked about it, and he gave one heck of a quote saying, I think at the end of the day, we got to look at this as an opportunity now for Irv Charles, Malachi Corley, and Xavier Gipson to get more involved with our offense. So for whatever reason, a little bit for us, a little bit for him, a little bit for him, a little bit everything, but opportunity for him to go out there, Pittsburgh, and get an opportunity to get more targets, be more involved. So Ulbrich did essentially discuss basically the backbone of the trade from each side, saying the Jets decided to move forward with three young receivers they have behind their big three receivers of Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Allen Lazard, given, as we know, Lazard is injured right now. But just covering everyone and looking at all that, you see a willingness for the New York Jets to look into their younger receivers while also giving Mike Williams a better opportunity to, well, essentially just be Mike Williams. Now, Aaron Rodgers the other day mentioned that he wants to see Irvin Charles get more touches, Matt, now that Mike Williams is gone. I love the idea of this personally. Where are you at with this?
Yeah, so this quote from Jeff Ulbrich basically tells us that one of the main driving ideas behind this trade was giving Mike Williams respect as a veteran and getting him somewhere later in his career where he can get some snaps and will get some more playing time that he wasn't going to get on the Jets. And it's also a huge vote of confidence in the young guys in the Jets locker room. Some guys who haven't had a lot of playing time, like Xavier Gipson, like Malachi Corley, who's only been activated for 2 games so far this season. We're going to see a lot more of him now that Mike Williams' snaps are gone. Irvin Charles is a guy who's made a lot of highlight plays over the preseason and ramping up in those preseason and summer practices that you might have seen on Jets Instagram, Jets other forms of media. But now Aaron Rodgers is giving him a vote of confidence, says he wants to get him on the field. And this is big because we've seen that it almost doesn't seem to matter how talented you are. When you're playing with Aaron Rodgers, you have to have a connection with Aaron Rodgers or you're going to play worse and the whole offense isn't going to work. So if Aaron Rodgers wants this guy to get on the football field on offense, that clearly shows that he must have a connection already in place with Aaron Rodgers that Aaron wants to see him on the offense. And I keep specifying that he's going to play offense instead of playing for the Jets because he's played a lot this year. It's just been on special teams. He's been, I don't know if I'd call him a special teams ace, but he's been really darn good on special teams. He has a blocked punt already. He's had so many plays where the guy doesn't fair catch the ball and he catches the punt and Irvin Charles has been right there to blow him up. No return, 0 return yards on the punt returns. And he's played really well on special teams. But now Aaron Rodgers is going to move him the offense. Taller guy. He's a bigger body wide receiver. You know, those bigger body guys, they have a wider, area where they can catch the ball. You can throw it all around them. They can stick their arms out, get outside the defender's arms and make plays, make catches. So Aaron Rodgers, if he decides that Irvin Charles is someone who needs more snaps on offense, he knows a lot more about football than I do. He has seen a lot more of Irvin Charles playing this year than both of us have. So we have to believe Aaron Rodgers on this, and we have to imagine that Irvin Charles will have a bigger spot in this offense going forwards.
Yeah, I mean, he's played just a handful of snaps off of special teams, but on special teams, he's been there. He's been a huge impact player for him. And it's a huge vote of confidence from Aaron Rodgers to go out there and essentially say, this is the guy who I want. This is who I want the New York Jets to have. Here's our number 4 receiver over a guy like a Malachi Corley and like Xavier Gipson. And given Corley and Charles are more similar players, Gibson's a bit different from them just style-wise. But Charles does have a Mike Williams-ness to him of like the size proportion and everything. Like clearly Rodgers is enjoying the bigger receivers between Davante Adams, obviously, and then also Allen Lazard historically, and even this year with the Jets before he went down with the injury. So it would make sense while not having Lazard, and now that Mike Williams is in Pittsburgh, that you're looking for a guy like Irvin Charles who's big, who's going to be able to just really dance with a lot of guys for a contested football. He's got a bigger surface area. I think we're going to see him target Charles a lot for a guy who's out of in a lineup where you're going to have 3 receivers and a tight end. He's probably the 4th, still behind Conklin, who's been solid this year, but he is going to get actual touches now.
Yeah, I like Conklin too, but I think Irvin Charles is probably going to step right in and take over the role that Mike Williams played on the Jets offense, because they're both wide receivers, which means they're big body guys who are going to line up on the line of scrimmage, and they're going to face press coverage, and they're going to run a lot of deeper routes. So we're going to see Irvin Charles. He's going to display some physicality, and he's going to beat that press man coverage, and he is going to go deep down the field and hopefully open up some under routes for Garrett Wilson, for Xavier Gibson, for Devontae Adams. So that's what he's going to do from an offensive scheme position. And he is going to, you wouldn't think at the start of the year, Irvin Charles is not a guy I would have expected to have a role on this offense, but it's pretty exciting to have some new players getting in here in this wide receiver rotation, because the Jets offense has gotten better with Todd Downing instead of Nathaniel Hackett, but still definitely nowhere near as good as it has to be. So I am excited to see what a new guy could potentially bring to the New York Jets offense. But we talked about in the intro, we talked about how we've been hearing more trade rumors. This was, of course, before the trade deadline happened. We know that the Dallas Cowboys were in the market for a wide receiver, and it turns out they actually called the New York Jets. They called us on Garrett Wilson. Now, if I was Joe Douglas, I would have slammed down the phone immediately, because I think that's a little bit disrespectful. We're not giving away our 24-year-old budding superstar wide receiver. He is right now, I saw the stats today, number 3 in the NFL in receiving yards. It goes Jettas, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, and then number 4 is CeeDee Lamb. And we all know what kind of contract CeeDee Lamb's on. Garrett Wilson has more receiving yards than him. Garrett Wilson, most catches in the league, 3rd in receiving yards, most targets in the league. He's a superstar, whether you like it or not. I have to imagine if you're watching this video, you like it. Garrett Wilson, fan favorite for Jets fans, might have had that awful play versus Pittsburgh, might have had another fumble earlier in the season, but hey, we love him. Great player. Jerry can enjoy having Jonathan Mingo on the team instead of Garrett Wilson. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to send a 4th-round pick away for a player who in college was outproduced by Malik Heath, a player who I think he was either a 7th-round pick or a UDFA. I think he might have been UDFA'd. I don't know what Jerry Jones thinks he sees in Jonathan Mingo, but hey, I am happy that Joe Douglas did not entertain this ridiculousness that would have been a Garrett Wilson trade. The point of trading for Devontae Adams is pairing him with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is the long-term wide receiver 1 for the New York Jets. They would need to do a full scorched earth rebuild to get rid of Garrett Wilson. Definitely not giving him to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care what they're sending us. Honestly, you heard the trade rumors ramping up, and I just had to laugh at them when I saw that people thought that Garrett Wilson was on the trade block, because obviously he wasn't. That was just people probably just trying to have fun. Maybe they're posting stuff for clicks, because it was obviously ridiculous. Obviously, Garrett Wilson was never, ever, ever moving.
That's only because he's on the Jets that they would have ever made those trade rumors about him. It's because he's a Jet. It's specifically the Jets. I truly think that's what happened there. But also, just covering the Wilson stuff, one of the big reasons for that move was because Jerry Jones, there were reports that Joe Douglas was pretty distraught after the firing of Robert Saleh, just because, look, we say it all the time, Joe Douglas is a very good general manager who's unfortunately been put in terrible situations with the Jets. But Joe Douglas knows the sport, and he understands that firing a head coach 5 weeks in is a terrible idea, no matter who the coach is, unless it's Adam Gase. Adam Gase should have been fired like week 1 of his first.
He should have been fired.
Should have been fired the day after they hired him.
Yeah, I was gonna say the second they hired him, they needed to fire him.
Yeah, that was absurd, and I'll never get over that. But that's okay. Look, I mean, that's why the Cowboys went out there and did that. I don't know if Jerry Jones is just a complete buffoon or what the deal is there, but obviously massive stupidity to go out there and try to think the Jets are going to trade Garrett Wilson. That is literally never going to happen. At the trade deadline, honestly, it was, I want to say 100 times more likely that the Jets would have traded Devontae Adams than they would have traded Garrett Wilson. It makes absolutely no sense. Even in a scorched earth rebuild, I don't see the point of trading Garrett Wilson. There's no point. If you're going to have a huge rebuild, you're going to have a ton of cap space anyway. Might as well pay the arguably the best player on the team.
Well, so the thing would be with the scorched earth rebuild, maybe Sauce and Garrett Wilson, they've already been here for multiple years where they've played amazing and the team has played horribly. So we would owe it to them to at least ask and be, if we go into a scorched earth rebuild, do you want to be a part of this? And if they say no, you can't blame them for a second and you got to trade them out of respect.
That's fair. But yeah, guys, I mean, obviously it's a crazy scenario with the Wilson stuff. Unsurprisingly, didn't happen. I'm looking forward to seeing some Irv Charles, especially after the hype up by Aaron Rodgers, and really just seeing what these young Jets receivers can do. Let us know who you think out of these three young receivers is going to flourish the most under Aaron Rodgers. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day, and go Jets, and boo Matt, just because. I don't know. Just boo. You suck, Matt.